Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again. So today, we're going to talk about DC, reactions, and responses. It's been a whirlwind 24 hours of the news cycle. So much for a day off, right? Okay, so the incident occurred, and as is typically the case, the right-wing spin machine created an entire narrative based on what they believed happened. Their immediate reaction. They started villainizing people and using wild rhetoric that continued to elevate the temperature. Of course, as often happens, facts began to totally undermine the narrative. But that didn't really prompt any substantial changes to the story, or at least the general tone. Then more facts started to surface, but at no point did they adjust the tone of the story to match them. At least so far. Okay, so immediately after the news broke, the right-wing media began trying to tell the country that the incident was the fault of Democrats, reminding troops they had a duty to disobey unlawful orders. This prompted calls for prosecution, threats, and so on. Then, as the facts started to show that all of those that made those claims jumped the gun, misled their audiences, and called for draconian measures against Americans based on a scenario they made up in their heads. They didn't apologize or inform their audiences because they need to keep the rage alive. When it was revealed that the attacker was an Afghan national, they immediately jumped to saying it was Biden's fault because a Biden-era program brought him here. Then, when it was shown that Trump's policies are the ones that actually granted asylum, they promised to start a new immigration crackdown. They've promised to re-examine all Afghan nationals who obtained refugee status. But here's the thing. They still jumped the gun. They still didn't have a motive. You see it, right? The constant jump from false claim to false claim until they finally land on a policy and a group to blame that isn't directly refuted by fact. Doesn't mean the policy is right. It just means it can fit a narrative. Here's the thing. This is right-wing politics. If they convinced you that a reminder of the duty to disobey, which is part of regular training, led to this, what else have they convinced you of that isn't true, but simply fit in the right narrative? That somehow people with less money and power than yourself are the source of your problems. That it's the people on Snap that are hurting you. Think about it logically for just a second. You have more money and more power than those they generally have you blaming. How much power do you actually have to influence the world? Not much, right? Now think about the people motivating you to kick down at those with less. Do they have power? Of course they do. They shaped your thoughts. They played on your reactions. You now have this information. I don't want you to react. I want you to think about it and respond by not letting them create reactions without all the information in the future. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.